It begins with two men reaching the summit of Half Dome. No rope, no camera crew, just two penciled figures frozen high on the peak of Half Dome. They're small, almost hidden in the ink. Yet somehow they hold the whole story. Because this isn't a photograph of Yosemite. It's a drawing, a wild, colorful map that knows more about this valley than any camera ever could. And somewhere inside it are secrets, if you look long enough. Why would a cartoon capture Yosemite's soul better than a lens? And who would draw a place this impossible and make it laugh? Before the ink, before the tourists, before even the name Yosemite, there was only the valley. A cathedral of stone carved by ice, echoing with wind and thunder. The Awanechi called this place Awani, the deep, gaping mouth of the earth. To them it was sacred, beautiful, and dangerous. The word that white settlers later mistook for the valley's name, Yosemite, actually meant those who kill. It was a warning, not a welcome. But like all warnings, it was ignored. By the 1860s, word of the valley spread east. Painters came first, Albert Bierstadt, Thomas Ayers, turning granite and light into miracles of oil and paper. Then came the photographers, like Carlton Watkins, whose giant cameras caught waterfalls taller than cathedrals. Each new image made people hunger for a place most would never see, until one president changed that forever. In 1864, Abraham Lincoln signed the Yosemite Grant, protecting the valley for the people. It was the first time a government had ever said, "This land is too beautiful to belong to anyone." It was the idea that would become America's national parks. Decades later, the map begins to move. At the bottom of the page, a bright red locomotive puffs smoke through pine trees. The Yosemite Valley Railroad, the 1920s gateway to paradise. Its cars are full of dreamers in wide hats and polished shoes, chasing a promised land of air and light. As the rails wind upward, they meet the automobiles, Model Ts crawling up dusty roads toward the same dream. Jo Mora would later draw them all. The trains, the cars, the families spilling from picnic blankets to stare at granite walls that made them feel small, and somehow larger for it. They were explorers of comfort, venturing just far enough to touch the wild before returning home to tell stories of it. But the valley doesn't bend to comfort. Look closer, near the cliffs on Mora's map, and you'll see them again. The climbers, tiny, brave, ridiculous. Men scaling El Capitan and Half Dome with nothing but rope and resolve, halfway between glory and madness. One slips, another waves to the valley below. They look like a joke, and maybe they were, but Mora understood something. That Yosemite makes people try the impossible. Those climbers weren't chasing danger. They were chasing the feeling of belonging to something enormous. Every reach, every foothold was a way to say, "I was here." In his drawing, Mora freezes that moment forever. Man against mountain, dream against gravity. Remember that climber from the opening? He's still there, suspended halfway between failure and flight. And then there's the map itself. Jo Mora wasn't a cartographer in the usual sense. He was a cowboy, a sculptor, a humorist, and a historian. A man who believed the West was too alive to be drawn with straight lines. In 1931, he gave Yosemite this portrait, not as a chart of roads and rivers, but as a living pageant. Every inch bursts with life. Bears raiding campsites, tourists posing at Glacier Point, skiers tumbling down winter slopes, even rangers tipping their hats to passing deer. Around the edges, Mora fills the borders with comic vignettes. Little stories of hunters, hikers, and families discovering that wilderness isn't just a place, it's a mirror. This wasn't a map meant to guide you to the valley. It was meant to remind you that you were already part of it. It laughed at human pride and honored human wonder in the same breath. And so, we come back to where we began. The climber on the granite wall. He's still frozen in the ink, one hand reaching for the next hold, the other gripping what looks like nothing at all. Maybe Mora left him there on purpose, unfinished, eternal, because Yosemite itself is never finished. It's always being climbed, photographed, painted, and dreamed again. A map like this doesn't just show where we've been. It shows who we were when we first looked up, when we believed that beauty could still surprise us. What's your favorite memory of Yosemite? Share your stories in the comments. I'd love to hear how this place lives in your memory. If you'd like to hold on to a piece of that wonder, the restored 1931 Jo Mora map of Yosemite is linked below. And if maps like this speak to you, our collection holds hundreds more, each one capturing a city, a park, or a moment when the country was still finding its shape. Shipping is free, and every purchase helps us preserve and restore these pieces of history so their stories don't fade. If you enjoy journeys like this, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell. It helps us grow and keeps history alive here on the channel. Thank you for walking through 1931 Yosemite with me and for helping these stories stay part of the conversation.